So hi, we're in the Isle of Skye and in front of this amazing view of the Old Man of Storr and Loch Fada in front, and it's a beautiful morning. Fortunately we're escaping any ravages of wind or rain at the moment, and the sun's doing beautiful things at the moment on the mountain. I'm not sure how much sun we're going to get today. It's the forecast is for cloud in about an hour's time or so. So let's get cracking. Today I'm going to do a mixed media drawing using watercolour essentially and some ArtGraF Taylor Blocks, and then I'm going to move to use Unison pastels. I'm just going to start by sketching out the subject compositionally. We've got the Old Man of Storr. I'm putting that up in the sort of top right hand corner of the paper. I want to make the most of the line of the loch bank. I'm not necessarily drawing this to scale because in truth the loch would probably go off the page here, but it's nice to have the banks of the loch, as I say, to let the eye move around the painting. I'm just going to start, but to try and get some colour onto the paper, I'm going to use these ArtGraF Taylor Blocks, so called because they're based on what tailors used to use for marking clothes, would you believe. Full of intense pigments. They're water-soluble graphite essentially, and they're just really helpful for getting some colour down onto a piece of paper. I've got a nice light brown here mixed with an almost intense black. I don't like using black too often in a landscape painting, but the graphite works really well. So I've got a nice broad 2-inch brush, which I'm going to use. Again, a nice thick brush to avoid me being too pernickety and precious about things in the painting. But you'll see how quick it is to cover the paper. Of course, in this scene, we're quite nicely secluded down here where I'm standing, but up top the mountains it is blowing pretty hard, so the clouds are moving quite fast across the sky, which in turn is casting different kinds of light on the landscape. So at some point you have to make a decision on what we're going to paint and what we're not going to paint. Once the water is wet, we can go back into the painting with the block and get even more intense effects. I think that's really nice, the way the mountain is at the moment against that sky. So it's a really helpful thing for landscape artists, I think, to use a kind of water-soluble graphite to just cover the paper initially to get a grounding. Right, I'm going to go on to watercolour now. Just clean the brush and let's get some cerulean blue into the sky. And ultimately I'm happy that any mistakes or any sort of unwanted drips, etc., that I end up with, I can deal with at the pastel stage. Despite being Scottish, I've never been to Skye before, so this is a real treat for me. It's just incredible. I would highly recommend it. There's a view around every corner, really. So I'm almost there with the underpainting. Just the final touches. I'm just going to put a little bit more of the indigo and darker blue into the rear of the loch, just mixing the two together and then applying that letting the mixture happen. Right, ready for pastels. So now we come to the pastel stage. Back into our comfort zone. Let's start with the sky, and the idea is to really find pastels and colours that have a synergy with what we've already done with the underpainting. I'm going to start with a nice light pastel, a light blue, to try and capture the bright blue in the sky at the moment. It's still the morning. It's about 9:30 or so. And also a cream. Let's not go overboard with it. We'll come back into that with the blue. So blending by working one colour into the other. It's quite a foreboding cloud, that, actually. I'm not sure if that means we're due for some rain later on. And then working this off-white back into the dark colour, helping to define the tops of the mountain by almost working negatively against the shapes. So I'm building a depth to the painting by working these colours one over the other, conscious of at the same time leaving some of the underpainting. Oh, there's a wonderful piece of light shining on the mountains at the moment. Let's try and capture that. These are the moments that make working outside just absolutely wonderful. And the beauty of pastel is being able to capture those moments very, very quickly with just a few strokes. So my way of working is to work for about an hour and a half or so on the painting, because at the end of that kind of time the light is going to be changing quite dramatically, and you'll end up painting a different painting to what you started off with. I never use pastel pencil in this kind of painting because there's just not a sufficient amount of pigment on the pencil. I always use little broken off bits of pastel. I'm just working away around parts of the scene that take my attention. Like up here, there's a nice muted green. Again, just scumbling over to let the darkness of the underpainting show through. Some more pink into the sky there while I see it. And over here. Being very loose with the pastel, because of course the sky is moving all the time with the clouds. So again, create that movement by different directions in the pastel strokes. Just bear in mind that the shadow of the clouds will obviously be nearer the land. So as long as you get that right, then you can be a little bit more expressive with your marks. And there's so much colour now actually in the mountain. There's reds in there, a little bit of red, russet. And we'll make something of the white cottage here, so we want to have light against dark. Fortunately, it's a nice white wall, so that's going to work really well against these colours. So you notice that I'm not blending with fingers. My blending is done by mixing one colour over another and working back into it continuously. So I end up with quite a few layers of pastel, which again makes it surprising that this paper can take so many layers. Usually I'd be working on a sanded paper. I create tooth by fixing every now and again. Two reasons for using this. One, as a painting medium, so this is going to darken my darks, and push them further back into the painting. The reason why people don't like using fixative often is because it does darken the painting. So I would never use it at the end of the painting as a final fix. But during the painting process, it's very helpful, and it will also create some more tooth so that the pastel pigment is going to sit on top of the areas that have been fixed. So if we just have a quick look here, I'm going to spray this over the dark cloud area and also the mountain just to intensify the darks. So we'll see that's got darker, and the mountain. And a little bit in this. Right. So that's all I need to do. And because I fixed that, the pastel will now sit nicely on top of the area that's just been fixed. And there's a nice lighter green, using yellow green 8 for this area here around near the house and sides of the loch. Do stand back from your painting every now and again. Give yourself a chance to assess where you've got to. But yeah, no, I think it's working quite nicely. I want to be careful not to lose too much of what I did with the underpainting, because the underpainting, with it being watercolour, water mixed media, it's working quite nicely. So there's light shining on the front of the loch at the moment. So I'm just going to block in, again dragging the pastel over the paper, this off-white. Remember, vertical as well as horizontal strokes for water. And we have some helpful reeds in the water, so we can get them in as well. It's very easy to overwork water, I find. I do it all the time, sadly. So get a nice effect and then leave it. Let's get some of those reeds in the water. I'm just going to drag this pastel in an upwards direction to give the impression of the reeds. This is the problem when the light is changing so dramatically. You get tempted to follow it, but that is just really lovely up there at the moment. Put that in. And of course, this is what just doesn't happen if you're working from a photograph. So I really do recommend getting out in front of the subject and having all this fun. So we're almost there with this this one. Just got the these areas of foreshore to deal with. Let's get a little bit of dark into the hillside against the white of the house, just to make it just sing a little bit more in the painting without making it too in our face. Nice reddish brown defines the edge of the loch, the banks. Then back to where the house is. So just lightly dragging the pastel over the paper, as I said earlier, a scumbling effect. The light is continuing to do absolutely magical things. Always looking for lights against dark to create drama. And of course, with the light shining on certain parts of the hills, that's really helping that dramatic effect. Dragging very lightly this dark purple over the hills, and again over here. So I don't think I'll be doing too much more to this standing out here. I'll take this back to my my studio, and we'll work a little bit more on it back there using photographic reference. The light's continuing to change. If I stand here any longer, I'm going to paint another 5 different views of the same scene because of the way the light is changing. So at some point you've got to make a decision and just go with what you've got. So I'll work a little bit more on this back in the studio, but the fact, as I always say, that I've stood here for a couple of hours or however long it's been in front of the scene is going to inform me back in the studio, and I will remember what it was that attracted me to the scene. Rather than taking it back to Yorkshire, we've come to Northumberland, to the home of Unison Colour pastels, and we're set up in one of their rooms, surrounded by the most wonderful array of pastels. This is one of those paintings done on site. It was great fun. It was such a wonderful view, and we had such great light that morning on Skye. But the actual end result, or at least the end of the day result, I just feel lacks some impact. So let's see if we can do something about that, just liven it up and turn it into a successful painting. I have my photo reference from the day. Again, it's not a great quality photograph, but I'm happy with that. Again, I don't want anything too detailed that's going to lead me to follow it too closely. It's just a reference to help remind me what it was about the scene that I really enjoyed. And what it was really was the morning light, the pinks and the yellows that were in the sky, and what was happening to the water. I feel at the moment we have a bit too much water, certainly on this kind of bland coloration that we have at the moment. So I'm going to try and enliven it by bringing some more darks into the rear part of the loch, and then perhaps bring a reflection of a cloud into the bottom right hand side, some nice pinks and yellows to reflect what's going on up in the sky. So let's start. We'll go from top to bottom, and no doubt I'll depart from that very quickly and start just working all around the painting, which is what I tend to do. But we'll start with the sky, and we'll try and bring a little bit more of the morning warmth that was there in the morning with some pinks and yellows. So the sun was really shining up this side of the sky. So let's bring some nice pinks across the sky. Again, just bringing the pastel just lightly across the paper to leave the underpainting underneath showing through. And we'll carry that pink through to the side as well. Maybe get some nice strokes going so we get some movement in the sky. It's always nice to get that. That's a really nice colour, I think. That's working nicely. We'll mix that with a light yellow. Do much the same thing, and just the two together will give that sense of morning light. And something a little bit brighter nearer the top of the mountain. Might even go towards just almost off-white. And that'll just work really nicely, the light against the dark, which was really happening on the day. Let that merge into some pinks. And I think that's working better already, really. So we'll leave that for the moment. Let's try and do something with the water, because this is a difficult area. It's such a large part of the painting that we really need to try and do something to enliven this area. So first of all, I'm going to darken the rear side of the loch with a nice dark blue purple. And again, just dragging it on its side across the paper, not filling the paper with pastels, so letting the underpainting show through, getting a little bit lighter in the middle and then darker again down towards the foreground. And that's already sort of lifted the painting just to give it that impact, that bit of oomph. We can bring some of the pinks from the sky as a reflection. So this kind of reflection of the cloud, let's make sure that that is a reflection. So we'll have light up here and off-white. And we'll bring that down then into the water. So I am pressing quite hard now because there's been a few layers of pastel on this paper, so it's struggling to take the pigment, the watercolour paper, but it's still doing so. Let's work on the hills now. There's a lovely morning light casting a glow on the hills, some nice oranges and pinks. So I'm going to be a little bit bolder with this orange and really pull that into the hill. And also over here there was a sheet of brightness from the sky. Yeah, definitely looking better already. Again, just catching the top. And we'll just bring a little bit of that colour into the sky as well, so that it can be seen to be being reflected in the landscape. And it's working well on this underpainting. The coloration that we had when we were in Skye, it's working really well as a foil for me to drag this pastel lightly over. And I'm just pushing things back into the background, but also lifting the scene at the same time with these brighter colours. Just finding the areas that are in shadow and letting the light work against the dark. So using pastel on its side to really cover the paper and also be really nice and quick and broad with the strokes. So always working to and fro to create that nice sense of depth. So I'm just going to bring this foreground a little bit further in front of the viewer, just to give a little bit more interest, foreground interest, to try and take away some of the water, so that it's not so all-encompassing. Might even bring it down here, which was pretty much actually what the view was. Using this kind of orange just to continue with that modern light thing, but I will go back into it with pinks and browns. I think I've introduced a little bit of lime green. That'll just add something to counter the amount of sort of reds and browns that we have at the moment. I'm in two minds about the reeds that we had in the loch. I I was quite keen on sort of bringing them into the painting because it added some interest for the foreground, but they didn't really quite work on the day. I'm just going to try have another go at that at the moment, because it is in the reference photograph. You'll see this is all reeds. So we'll try and do something along those lines, and if it doesn't work, then we'll just take it out. But using this darker pastel, I think will be quite nice. Just dragging it lightly in a vertical strokes and letting it come through into the lighter areas. So we're working again, lights against dark, and maybe bring some light in between. Make it a little bit more grass-like, so I'm just going to do some vertical strokes. So that's just beginning to make it look a little bit more grass-like. Well, I've got this pink. Let's make a little bit more of that. In the hills, kind of random marks where the light is just catching features in the landscape. Again, this is kind of popping technique. All these little ridges where the light will be falling. And the last thing I'm going to do is just work a little bit more light against dark around the white cottage, that helpful white cottage. As I say, Skye seems to be made for artists and photographers. Well, this beautiful countryside, and then we have a random white cottage just into the side of a hill, just to give a nice point of focus or bit of interest. And here we have it down here. So let's find our off-white, really pressing the pastel into the paper, just to make sure that shows. We don't have to be too detailed about it. Just get that sense that it is a building of some sort. I'm just going to define that a little bit better just by some negative painting going around the roof. That orange. Almost there. I don't want to overwork this, but it's certainly more interesting than where we left off in Skye. And bring the water actually into the land. Again, that makes things quite interesting. Just dragging the pastel just over the various colours, that just merges everything together. Makes it all work together really nicely. So yeah, so that's only been, I'm not sure, matter of minutes really that we've been working on this, but it's really livened things up from where we started and where we left off in Skye to where we are now. It's only been 20-30 minutes or so, and it's turned a fairly bland painting into something with impact, introducing colour into the sky with the pinks and the oranges, creating more impact in the water by darkening the rear and the foreground, and then bringing that nice bright colour, the reflections of the clouds, into the middle of the loch. Yeah, I think that works really nicely. So thank you very much for watching this one, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.